This is part 2 of my favorite Nintendo games in 2025. You can find part 1 in the description below. Let's get back into it. Nintendo 64.
Yo, listen up.
We will not live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction or see where we can set.
Okay, this might be considered a cop-out, but I don't care. Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64. This game, like many others, was my very first 3D game, and it was wholly my own. My brother grew up with the Super Nintendo, my younger brother grew up with the GameCube, and this was my game. This was my very favorite game on the Nintendo 64. And until just recently, I had never beaten it. I had always gotten down to the basement, and I couldn't quite get past that point. But I'm happy to say, shortly after the release of Super Mario 3D All-Stars, I have finally beaten this game. It's about damn time. It hasn't aged the best, but that's okay. I mean, they were trying their best with what they had, and they had no groundwork to go off of. So it really is a modern marvel that Mario 64 holds up as well as it does to this day. My favorite way to experience this game nowadays is the recompilation, the PC port, with Render 96 enabled, because it's a nostalgic thing, and that's how I saw the game as I was growing up. That's what I saw when I looked at these chunky polygons. I don't even have to say anything else. I don't even think I can recommend this game because I guarantee you've probably played it. However, if you haven't, the PC port is a phenomenal time. And not just PC port, it's on literally everything, so it's basically the modern version of Can It Run Doom.
Game Boy Advance.
Only in Donkey Kong Country. Swimming gorillas.
Donkey Kong Country, while a phenomenal Super Nintendo game, is one of my absolute favorite Game Boy Advance games to this day. Sure, the colors are a little blown out, and the soundtrack isn't as good, but all of the additions to this game highly outweigh those two small nitpicks from purists. The wider aspect ratio so you can see what you're coming up on, the revamped Funky's Flights, a mechanic in the game, extra collectibles, new mini-games. There really is no better way to play this game in my opinion. Growing up, anytime I was sick home from school, I would ask my mom to play Donkey Kong Country with me on the Super Nintendo. So having the game portable, playable at any time, was just mind-blowing to me as a kid. To this day, Donkey Kong Country is still one of the greatest 2D platformers, and I could not be happier that Donkey Kong is back in the spotlight.
Nintendo GameCube.
Ha! Nin niku 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 nin niku nin. Ha! Nin niku nin nin nin. Ha! Nin niku ha! Nin niku ha! Nin niku ha! Wario-sama da! Brin! 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 Brin!
Wario World is such a weird game. Like, it basically feels like a game that shouldn't exist, and I think for that reason alone, it is such a good time. It embodies the very what the f nature that the Wario series was going through at the time. Essentially a 3D version of the Wario Land franchise, and more specifically Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance. This game is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, but not really the standard kind of beat-em-up where you clear a screen and then you move on to the next one. It's also a collectathon in a 3D platform at the exact same time. I really don't know how to explain this game without saying it's a Wario game, because it really is just its own thing, and no other games have really tried to be what Wario World was. I think my favorite part of this game is just how Wario never shuts up during the entire thing. He's constantly making noises, he's screaming, he's grunting. When you pause the game, he makes fun of you for pausing the game. It's a fever dream from start to finish, but it is easily one of my favorite games just because of how weird it is. It's an absolute blast to play, and I really hope that Nintendo makes another one or re-releases this one, because the only way to experience this game is on original hardware or through emulation, and that's a crime. I recently picked up a copy of Wario World for the GameCube so I can play it on real hardware, and I do plan on making a full review for this game once I complete it, because, man, I love this game so much. It is easily one of my favorite games of all time, and it's earned its spot on this list for sure.
Nintendo DS.
Fullmetal Alchemist Dual Sympathy is, I think, the only game on this list that's not a just straight up Nintendo game. And the way that I found it is just so weird that I might as well just tell the story instead of explaining what this game is. I was on the car ride back from school one day and I decided to pull out my Action Replay and plug it into my DS. At the time, the entire cheat list was installed, so I started looking through games and was just looking for a game to play by looking at the names. And for some reason, I looked at Fullmetal Alchemist Dual Sympathy and said, that sounds cool. So the next time I went to go and rent a game from Family Video, if you guys even know what that is, I picked up this game, and holy shit, this game is so much fun. It's your typical side-scrolling beat-em-up, but you can also use the touchscreen to summon things like turrets and walls to get over some of the small puzzle elements that are in the game. There are some dumb mini-games, there's an alarm clock. This game just kind of has everything. It's not the greatest game in the world, but I enjoy it so much because of the nostalgic factor.
We would like to play.
Super Smash Bros. Brawl is one of those you either love it or you hate it kind of games. I don't feel like I have to even explain what a Super Smash Bros. Game is because they kind of transcend Nintendo consoles in general, and they're just known by everybody. And while the competitive scene might see Smash Bros. Brawl as the weakest iteration of the series, to me, it's easily one of the most charming, I'd say. They tried to make every single character as gritty as possible by giving, them super realistic textures. Mario has actual denim, and I think they were going for that badass aesthetic because they added Solid Snake, but then immediately followed that up by adding Sonic. I go back and play all the Smash Bros. Games here and there, but Smash Bros. Brawl is one of the ones I go back to because of the Subspace Emissary mode. And while it's kind of a slog to complete, it's fun to chip away at every once in a while.
Nintendo 3DS.
Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was my first actual experience with a Luigi's Mansion game, besides watching my dad play the original on GameCube when I was growing up. It takes the basic Luigi's Mansion formula and kind of whittles it down to a mission-based format, and I think for quick pick-up-and-play action on a handheld, it does the job pretty well. You can kind of hop in and hop out whenever you want to, take a handful of missions down, finish one, and go on about your day, revisit one you've already beaten, and catch the boo that's hidden in that level. It's kind of just the best way to experience Luigi's Mansion in a bite-sized format. I take my modded 3DS out of the house with me quite often, and whenever I want to play something quick, don't really want to put a lot of brain power into it, I boot up Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and finish a mission or two. Or sometimes I like to visit the multiplayer mode, the Scare Scraper, which as a kid was one of my absolute favorite things to play because my brothers would actually play along. But nowadays, playing it solo is just kind of not the vibe. There was a re-release of this game on Nintendo Switch, and I haven't really heard anything about it. It came out a handful of years ago, so I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. I haven't played it, so I'm not sure of what quality it is. But just know that the original on Nintendo 3DS is one of the best 3D puzzle games available on the system.
One player against four.
I can't say I revisit the Wii U very often, but when I do, I think one of the only games I tend to play is Nintendo Land. This virtual theme park full of Nintendo-based attractions was the pack-in title for the Wii U, and it did a pretty good job for people that were already Nintendo fans, but didn't capture the same sort of essence that Wii Sports did. It wasn't converting non-Nintendo fans into Nintendo fans, or converting non-gamers into gamers. It was just kind of a Nintendo game for Nintendo fans. And as a Nintendo fan, it is a lot of fun. The Wii U just kind of got asymmetrical multiplayer right, kind of ahead of its time from asymmetrical multiplayer nowadays with VR. So it's kind of cool to go back and see the beginnings of what became kind of a subgenre of gaming as a whole. This game actually replaced board games as a family game night attraction for my family for a while, and I think for that reason alone, Nintendo Land earns the spot.
Nintendo Switch.
Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics is just such a weird game, but it's easily one of the most addicting to play with friends or solo. That is, if you like board and card games. If you're not a big board or card game fan, you probably won't like this collection very much, but for someone like me, this is a super fun time. This game features certain games like Legally Distinct Yahtzee, Legally Distinct Sorry, Legally Distinct Uno, and then your basic card games like Blackjack, Poker, and President, which I didn't realize was even a thing until I started playing this, but is now easily one of my favorite card games of all time. The game weirdly has the Wii Play aesthetic, and actually features some of the sports that were featured in Wii Sports, but like miniature versions of them. Whenever the wife and I are settling down from a long day at work, we typically like to boot up Clubhouse Games and play a few rounds. And then whenever we feel like being more competitive, we boot up 6-Ball Puzzle, which sounds really unassuming on the surface, but it is easily one of the most heated gaming experiences I've ever had, and I've been playing competitive games for a very, very long time. This game is an absolute treat. If you're looking for something bite-sized to play with friends or by yourself, Clubhouse Games is a phenomenal deal. You can even pick up a physical version of it nowadays, and you can game share it through Switch and Switch 2, kind of harkening back to the OG days of DS download play. And that wraps up the list. The Nintendo Switch 2 is just a little too new, and I really only own 2 exclusive games for the console, so it would be between Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, which Donkey Kong Bonanza absolutely clears Mario Kart World, and it's not even close. It was nice to get retrospective for a bit and take a walk down memory lane and look at these games with a more analytical lens as to why I enjoy playing them so much instead of just, picking them up, playing them for a bit, and then putting them down. A few months from now, these games could be completely different. There could be entirely different genres of games in every single category. There would just be no way to tell until the time comes. But I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about video games for a little while, and I hope to revisit this topic with other console libraries very, very soon. But for now, that's all I've got. Stay tuned. Have a good one.